Do you consider yourself a real, true fragrance collector? It's either a yes or no. I mean, what do you guys think? I would definitely consider myself to be a fragrance collector at this point. However, when I was first starting out and had a good abundance of fragrances, 10, 15, I still didn't really consider myself a collector. Because I think for a lot of us, and I could just be speaking for myself, but there's certain benchmarks that you try to hit, and a lot of it isn't even necessarily super expensive niche fragrances. Those weren't really on my list for me to become a collector, a true collector. What I was trying to do was cultivate a list or a collection of all of the big hyped up scents that you hear everybody talking about all over the place. Because believe it or not, there was a point in time where each of these 10 fragrances were talked about all the time to the point where you could not get away from them. Some of these, the hype has died down a little bit, but they're still true staples that are ingrained in the fragrance community. Others, the hype is still surrounding them. But ultimately, in my opinion, if you are someone that's in deep and you have a real passion or interest for collecting, you probably have most, if not all, of these 10. Let's find out if you do. First up, we have Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue Eau Intense. So I think everyone remembers the hype surrounding this one. Had a good dose of it, and for a good reason, and most of these for a good reason. A lot of great fragrances in here. This one is really good for summertime. It's so carefree and relaxing. It's got sea notes and juniper and a little bit of ambergris in here and a sea saltiness about it. It literally smells like you're on the beach. All of your worries are just gone for the time being, and you're just relaxing and enjoying yourself. That's what this one is all about. I think it's very representative of a vacation or the summertime and or both. And ultimately, I think it makes sense why this one has done so well in the fragrance community for men. And again, most of you have probably caved in by now and bought this one because of the hype. Or something like Replica by the Fireplace. That's more like it. You know, it's funny because for the longest time, I only had like 2 Replica fragrances. And then here within the past like couple weeks, I've bought several more. So now I have more bottles than I'm used to. This is what I was looking for by the Fireplace. Look at the color of that juice right there. Now, I'm sure you guys remember the hype surrounding this one, and it was a little bit surprising because this is not a Dior, it's not a Dolce & Gabbana, it's not a Chanel, and so generally with brands like that, it's easier for the hype train to get rolling, but this one, not so much, and it did really well, and it still is doing well. Now this one has vanilla, it's got some chestnut in here, some other woods going on. It's a gourmand, and it literally smells like the name implies. You're sitting by the fireplace in the wintertime. Maybe you're roasting some marshmallows and just having, a thing of hot chocolate or something like that. And even it kind of reminds me of fall outside a bonfire, roasting marshmallows over that. It just has a very cozy, warm smell to it with that nice gourmand smell. Also, the burning wood, the chestnut description is very spot on for this one. And again, this is one where it's going to really appeal to people who do want something maybe a little bit different. And if that's you, you probably already have this, but if you don't, you should look into it. Next up, Versace Man Eau Fraiche, one of the first fragrances that I ever bought. True story, and you can go way back to the very beginning on my channel. My first video was a review of this. Now this one has starfruit, lemon, bergamot, and a whole bunch of musk. So clean, so fresh, so wearable. So inoffensive. If you find me one person that generally despises how this smells, I will pay you $1. In all seriousness though, this is the type of thing where in public, in real life scenarios, I don't think you would get a single person who turns their nose up to this and thinks it smells disgusting. And that's something that could definitely happen with a lot of other things out there in the community. And so if you want to play it safe, you got to have this. And I mean, you could just look anywhere at one point in time and this was being talked about or brought up or held up or a picture of it somewhere. This was all over the place when I was first getting started, and it's definitely died down since then, but still everybody knows Versace Man Eau Fraiche. It's kind of a legend at this point, and I'm sure most of you probably have it. Or something like Spice Bomb. Same deal, you know, this is the type of thing that made its rounds big time for a couple of reasons that I've talked about before, one of which being the bottle. Who doesn't think this is cool? I mean, that's cool. And also just the smell, you know, this is the type of thing where when word gets out that it's a good compliment getter and it lasts a long time, has great performance is how we would say, but you know, in the real world, people are going to say, oh, it just lasts forever, bro, and it gets compliments. You got to get it. As soon as that word of mouth starts, it's game on. And that happens a lot with your Invictuses and 1 millions and that sort of thing. And that definitely took place here, which propelled it into this next level of bestseller. And while maybe this one has stepped back a little bit in favor of SPICEBOMB Extreme here in the community anyway, this is still one that everyone, for the most part, I'm sure, has played around with at some point. And I'm sure most of you probably have a bottle of SPICEBOMB sitting somewhere in your collection. Could be towards the back with a bunch of dust on it by now. You could still be wearing it, but I'm sure a lot of you guys have this one. And this next one, without a doubt in my mind, is one that makes so much sense, and to some extent, the hype is still going on pretty heavily. PRADA L'Homme, you know, the soapy clean office scent is kind of what this one has been dubbed, and for good reason. It's very clean and classy and sophisticated and masculine, so definitely going to be a little bit more upscale, a little bit more professional here. It's got iris, it has neroli, some other woods going on, some other florals, light florals. This is a nice fresh iris, and this is the perfect gateway into iris scents. And so because of those things, it just got a ton of hype. It really took off, and it still is one that I do recommend you guys to pick up for sure. To be fair, most of these I would still say are definite must-haves. Some have flankers that maybe I would recommend instead, but this is a situation where you gotta have PRADA L'Homme. Let's keep it moving with L'Homme Ideal L'Intense by Guerlain. So why this one? Well, probably because you've seen the hype of the Eau de Parfum and you bought it. Okay, am I right or am I wrong? Let me know. And then at some point, probably before this, maybe, or sometime after, depending on the time frame, you saw the hype of L'Homme Ideal Cologne. Remember, before that got discontinued? You saw that and you got it. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of you probably did. And so then you were left wondering, okay, what else can I check out in the line? You could go for sport, you could go for the original, but also what makes sense is the intense, the L'Intense. You know, this isn't the extreme. Maybe that's one you picked up as well, but this is kind of the logical next step. If you got into those other ones via the hype train, you start looking at something like this. You see the smoke, you see the chili pepper, you see the almond, of course, signature almond with some leather and tonka bean. You think it looks delicious, and so you pull the trigger on it. And I have to say, you made a great choice. This one smells really, really good, and it's a really nice companion to those others that I mentioned. It's got a lot more smoke going on, a little bit more substance, just a different take. And this one is also very easy to get, at least in comparison to the Eau de Parfum and Cologne, of course, but also Cool and the Extreme and even Sport. This is super easy to pull off and pick up, rather, and I guess pull off to some extent. If you have the confidence for this one, it's an easy wear in the wintertime, very classy. Definitely one you should have around. This is also one that was, you know, it's been out for a long time, but I remember more so the flankers being talked about heavily when I first got started. And at the time, I was really having to juggle my funds because I couldn't afford to just go out and blind buy everything. So I'm like, okay, I'm just not ready to put my money over there yet. But it's Angelman, the original. You know, at this time, Pure Malt and Havane were getting talked about a ton and really showing up all over when I was first starting out. And subsequently, this one was also getting thrown into the mix as well. Since then, because all of the flankers have been discontinued and this one's now getting hard to find, obviously with that comes the result of less talk overall, and that's kind of where we're at. However, I'm sure at some point, again, because this one's been out for a long time, you've decided to pick it up, and that was a great choice, especially now that these are just getting super hard and really they're becoming collectibles. Now this has patchouli, coffee, and caramel. There's some vanilla and tonka bean in here as well, very signature. There's actually a lot more notes than that too, but primarily those are the ones that I get. It's really, really unique for what you get here, and when you can normally get it for a good price, it was 50, 60 bucks at some point, and maybe now a little bit more expensive, but for the price point at the time, you got a strong performer, you got something unique, and all around just a real nice coffee scent. I'm sure a lot of you guys jumped on this when it was being hyped up, and I'm glad you did. Same deal with AZZARO Wanted by Night, and still this one is ongoing, so I'm sure you're still seeing it pop up. I bring it up really whenever I see fit, which in the wintertime is quite often. And it's not just because I wake up and I go, okay, what random fragrance can I just pick up and hype up randomly? That's not how this works. When I get excited and I talk about something often, that's because I really like it. And also, when you combine the value into that equation, then it really just makes it go crazy. I mean, when you can get this for 50 bucks, you got a 10+ hour strong performer, something that just is very wearable, great mass appeal, compliments, and quality to price ratio, all of that combined. To me, it's just one that you need to get into and shouldn't be overlooked. So I'm sure by this point, most of you have it. But if you don't, I would look into this. When it down to the last two, Versace, Dylan Blue. So, you know, this was kind of popping up around the Sauvage and Acqua di Gio hype era, you know. And the reason why I say Acqua di Gio, I meant Profumo, Acqua di Gio Profumo and Sauvage hype era. The reason why I bring up Profumo is because that one somehow got compared to this a little bit because of the patchouli or something. I don't remember exactly what was going on there. But ultimately, this is much more blue fragrance. And so, you know, with Sauvage going crazy and things like Aqua Atlantique coming out and just all of these blues going on in aquatics and everything, this one was put out. And of course, it did very well, especially when it hit discounters and you could get it for $40, $45. And still to this day, this is one of the best bang for your buck blue fragrances. Now, when it comes down to it, some of my favorites, it's always going to be Bleu de Chanel, it's always going to be YSL Eau de Parfum, and I'm always going to love Sauvage. What do those have in common? They are about double the price, even at discounters. Chanel, you can't even get at discounters. And so again, to the pricing category and just kind of the whole value package, so to speak, of price, compliment factor, performance, versatility, quality, this one still probably takes the cake overall at half the price of the other big blues. So I'm sure that was a big motivating factor for a lot of people, like it was myself. And to this day, still a hyped up one that I do think everyone should own. I mean, you can do literally just about anything with this one. It's one of my favorites, actually. I love it. And we'll end the video with Chanel Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme. Similar deal, you know, this was one that got really popular really quick, it seemed like. And then all of a sudden, this was popping up all over the place, and it compelled people to want to see what it was all about, definitely myself included. I was so excited to get this one because it was one of my first kind of luxury designer high-end purchases. It's not a niche fragrance, obviously, but at the time, this was a lot of money, still is a lot of money. And so I was pumped up for it. And I got it in, and at first I actually was kind of like, I don't get it, you know, the hype thing, I don't know. Over time, it's grown on me to the point where I like it more now as someone with all of this stuff behind me. I like it more now compared to when I first got it. And so I think that speaks to the scent itself. It's not just something super basic. There's just something really pleasing about this one. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have bought into it by now. But if you haven't, I still say, hey, this is worth it in 2023. It's definitely one you should check out. Pick up the versatility, the performance, the compliment factor, and of course the Chanel quality is definitely not something you should overlook here. Alright guys, that's going to do it for me. Let me know which of these you have in your collection right now, or maybe you've had at some point and then got rid of. I will link all of these down below to discounters so you can pick some of these up. And also I have a mailing list you can sign up to at the first link if you want to get some of the best fragrance deals delivered to your email on a daily basis. If you don't want to do the email thing, it's totally fine. I'm posting the same deals on my community tab here on YouTube. The difference is you just don't get notifications from that. YouTube doesn't have that set up. So that's why I offer the email. So as soon as something rare comes into stock, like L'Eau Medial Extreme, like I was just talking about, Dior Homme Parfum, La Nuit Bleu Electrique, and so on, the email gives you that notification. Whichever way you want to go about it, you're going to save a lot of money at either of those places. That's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.